My name is Emily. I am 31 years old. I did something I never imagined I would do, and now it hangs over me, a shadow in every sunlit room. It follows me into quiet moments. It jolts me awake in the dead of night. It whispers in my ear when the house is still. I cheated on my husband, and I cannot forgive myself. It didn't begin with a dramatic explosion. There was no thunderous fight, no screaming match, no slamming doors. My husband, Liam, has always been a good man. He never belittled me, never raised his voice. He worked hard, came home every evening, ate the dinner I made, watched some television, and went to bed. We were a normal couple. I repeated that to myself over and over like a mantra. We were normal, but normal isn't always enough. For the last 2 years, something inside me had shifted. I felt profoundly alone, even when Liam was sitting right beside me on the sofa. I would smile, but it was a mask. I cooked dinner, but my hands felt like they were moving through concrete. I would listen to him talk about his day at the office, but I had stopped absorbing the details. Sometimes I would look at him across the table and feel a chilling sense of distance, as if he were a stranger. The thought terrified me, so I buried it deep and kept quiet. I acted as if everything was fine, but inside I was hollow. Then I met someone. His name was Ethan. He wasn't objectively better than Liam. He wasn't smarter or kinder or more handsome. But he looked at me in a way I hadn't been looked at in a very long time. We met at a gym. It was nothing special, just a place I had started going to feel something, anything at all. I would walk on the treadmill and just watch people, not caring much about fitness. It was an escape, a place where I could leave my quiet house and feel like someone else for an hour. Ethan was a trainer there. He would help people with simple things, showing them how to stretch or use the machines. He said hello. I said hello back. That was all it was at first, but slowly that changed. We started talking more. Small talk evolved into longer conversations. I laughed at his jokes. He remembered my name. One day, he noted I looked tired and asked if I was okay. No one had asked me that, really asked, in what felt like years. I told him I was fine, but a part of me desperately wanted to say more. I should have stopped it right then and there. I should have remembered who I was, where I belonged. I should have walked away, but I didn't. One evening, he asked if I wanted to get coffee after his shift ended. I said yes. To this day, I don't fully understand why. Maybe I just wanted to feel seen. Maybe I was just tired of the suffocating quiet of my life. I went with him. We talked for an hour, then 2. I completely forgot to text Liam. When I finally got home, I lied. I said the fitness class had run late. He believed me without a second thought. After that, we met more frequently. Nothing happened at first, just coffee, just talking. But I started dressing a little nicer for the gym. I spent a little longer looking in the mirror. I found myself smiling when he would place a hand on my shoulder to correct my form. I didn't move away. One day, he asked if I wanted to come over to his place. I said yes. I can't even explain the thought process. It was as if my body moved on its own accord, my mind trailing behind in a fog. I followed him. I sat on his couch. I looked around his apartment at the bare walls, the empty coffee table, the single chair, the plain window. It all felt so wrong, but I didn't leave. I stayed. That night, I crossed a line I can never uncross. I did something I can never take back. When I woke up the next morning in his bed, I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel loved. I felt sick to my stomach. I left without saying much, walking to my car as if I were wading through deep water. My hands were cold and numb on the steering wheel. I didn't turn on the radio. I craved silence. Liam had already left for work when I got home. The house was still. I sat at our kitchen table for a long, long time, staring at the wood grain. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, feeling smaller and more broken than I had ever felt in my life. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. I didn't answer it. I never answered him again. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't told a single soul. I walk through my life as if nothing happened. I kiss Liam on the cheek when he leaves. I fold his laundry. I ask about his day. But everything feels like a performance now. I can't sleep through the night. I can't eat a meal without a sharp, twisting knot of guilt in my stomach. My mind replays the memory of that night on a loop. I see Ethan's apartment. I feel the crushing weight of my decision. I remember how badly I wanted something different, and how that want shattered the quiet peace I once took for granted. What hurts the most is that Liam has no idea. He still smiles at me the same way. He still holds my hand when we cross the street. He doesn't know the truth, and I don't know how to live with this lie. Sometimes I stand in front of the bathroom mirror and just stare at myself. I don't recognize the woman looking back at me. I see a liar. I see someone who betrayed the one person who had always been her rock. I want to scream at that woman in the mirror. I want to demand an answer. Why? Why did you do it? Why did you throw away years of trust for a few hours of feeling new? But she never answers. She just stares back, her eyes silent and exhausted. I think about telling Liam, but the very thought makes me feel physically ill. What would he say? What would he do? Would he leave me? Would he cry? I can't bear it. I cannot even begin to imagine the look on his face if he knew. People say the truth will set you free, but I don't believe that anymore. This truth wouldn't free me. It would destroy him, so I keep it locked inside. But it's never silent in my mind, not for a single second. My own conscience, the part of me that still feels shame, relentlessly asks the same question. What kind of person am I now? What kind of wife? I want to turn back time. I want to go back to the day before I met Ethan. I want to walk right past him. I want to choose my home. I want to choose Liam. But I didn't. And now all I can do is carry this impossible weight alone. Every night I lie in bed beside my husband. He sleeps peacefully, his breathing even and calm. I turn to face the wall, my eyes wide open in the dark, and the silence in the room is deafening. It screams the truth I can't bring myself to say out loud. The days bled into one another, but I felt frozen in time. I woke up. I brushed my teeth. I made breakfast, and I forced a smile when Liam walked into the kitchen. But on the inside, I felt like ice. Nothing in my life felt real anymore. Even the warm, comforting smell of coffee in the morning felt like a memory I couldn't quite reach. Liam didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't know how to ask. He still hugged me before he left for work. He still brought home small gifts like a chocolate bar he knew I liked or my favorite juice. He still told me about his work, the small problems, the strange coworkers, a funny story from his lunch break. I listened. I nodded, but I never truly heard him. My thoughts were a million miles away. Some nights he would ask if I was okay. He'd say I seemed tired. I would tell him I was fine. He always believed me, and that made everything infinitely worse. He trusted me completely. He looked at me with eyes full of genuine care, and I sat there, a fraud. Every time I laughed at one of his jokes or kissed him good night, I felt like the worst kind of liar. I wanted to scream and confess everything, but the words would never come. I started avoiding mirrors. I couldn't stand to see the face of a person I no longer understood. I threw myself into housework. I scrubbed the kitchen counters, even when they were already spotless. I folded clothes with an obsessive precision. I cooked elaborate, perfect meals. It was as if I were trying to wash away my sin with chores and feigned normalcy, but nothing helped. My mind was never at rest. Even in the smallest, quietest moments, a voice inside me was always there. When I washed the dishes, it would ask me why I did it. When I sat in the shower, it would call me a coward. It was a constant reminder that no matter how kind and loving Liam was, I had already failed him in the most profound way. I couldn't tell my friends. I couldn't tell my sister. I couldn't even imagine telling a stranger. The words felt too heavy to speak. I pictured the way people would look at me if they knew. I didn't want their pity or their judgment. But most of all, I didn't want them to confirm what I already believed, that I didn't deserve Liam. I stopped going to the gym, of course. I couldn't risk seeing Ethan again. I never blocked his number, but I never opened his messages either. He texted 3 times. I saw the previews on my screen. He missed me. He wanted to talk. He didn't regret that night. But I did, and I hated him for saying he didn't. One morning while Liam was at work, I sat on the edge of our bed and seriously considered leaving. Not forever, just for a while. Maybe a week away would clear my head. But what would I tell Liam? That I needed space, that I was just tired. It would be another lie, and I couldn't bear the thought of building another one. Instead, I tried to be a better wife, kinder, softer. I planned a special dinner at home, just for the 2 of us. I cooked his favorite meal. I put on a nice dress. I even lit a candle. He smiled when he walked in, looking surprised and happy. He kissed me and said, "This is nice." For a few fleeting minutes, I felt normal again. I almost believed I could fix this. But then, halfway through dinner, he looked at me with concern and said, "You've been so quiet lately. Is something really wrong?" I froze. My fork stopped midway to my mouth. I forced a smile that felt too wide, too fast. "No, everything's okay," I said. And just like that, the moment was shattered. I saw the worry in his eyes. He didn't press the issue, but I knew he felt it. He knew something was off, even if he couldn't name it. That night, I cried silently in the bathroom. I sat on the cold tile floor in the dark, covering my mouth with my hands so he wouldn't hear my sobs. The tears wouldn't stop. I felt like I was sinking deeper every day into a dark place I could not escape. I wasn't just guilty anymore. I was ashamed. And that shame had become a part of me. I started to wonder if I had ever truly loved Liam. The thought scared me more than anything because I believed I did. But if I loved him, how could I have broken him without him even knowing? Why did I let someone else into a part of my life that was supposed to be reserved only for him? I had no answers. I still don't. Some nights I would lie in bed with my eyes open, just listening to the soft sound of Liam's breathing. I would watch his face, relaxed in sleep, and think about all the years we had built together. The small things, the morning walks, the way he made my coffee just right, the way he would kiss my forehead when I was having a bad day. I didn't want to lose any of it, but I knew in a way he couldn't see yet that I already had. The worst part was knowing that even if I did confess, even if I broke down and screamed every single ugly word out loud, it wouldn't bring me peace. It would only bring him pain. And I didn't know if that pain would end with his forgiveness or with the sound of him walking out our front door forever. So I remained quiet. I went to work. I came home. I made dinner. I smiled when I had to, and inside I just kept falling. I thought about therapy. I even searched for therapists online. I would open their websites, read their profiles, and then close the browser. I didn't want to tell a stranger. I didn't want to say the words out loud, because once I did, the truth would become even more real than it already felt. Sometimes I would catch myself staring into space for long stretches, forgetting what I was doing, losing track of time. I felt like a ghost in my own home, floating through a life that wasn't mine. Liam still loved me. That was the cruelest part of it all. He still kissed me goodbye in the morning. He still said, "I love you," before we went to sleep, and I would whisper it back. the words feeling like shards of glass in my throat. It's terrifying how a single choice, one night, one moment of weakness can change the entire landscape of your life. I don't even remember every detail of that night anymore. It's like my mind is desperately trying to erase it, but my heart knows. My body knows. And every single day, it reminds me that there is no one to blame but myself. Ethan didn't force me. Liam didn't push me away. I made a choice, a selfish one, and now I have to live with it. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I will ever find the courage to tell the truth. I don't know if Liam will ever see the cracks in my facade and ask the one question I fear the most. All I know is that the silence between us is growing, and the guilt, it never, ever sleeps. The weeks bled into months. I stopped counting how long it had been since that night. Each day felt identical to the last, a cycle of quiet desperation. Morning arrived with weary eyes, and night fell with a silence that wrapped around me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. I was moving through my life, but it no longer felt like my own. Liam remained oblivious. He still smiled when he came through the door. He still reached for my hand instinctively when we crossed the street. He still told me stories about his day, and I would find myself wishing I could travel back in time. Not to change what I did, but just to feel that simple, uncomplicated peace again, even for a moment. I missed the life I had before I single-handedly destroyed it. Some people say guilt fades over time, that you learn to live with it, that your heart eventually adjusts. Perhaps that's true for some. It wasn't true for me. My guilt didn't fade. It grew roots, twisting itself into the very fabric of my being. It sat with me as I watched a movie. It followed me down the aisles of the grocery store, and it waited for me at the edge of sleep. It never left. I tried harder to be a good wife, as if my actions could somehow atone for my thoughts. I made more of an effort. I offered kind words. I remembered important dates. I smiled when I felt like crying. I even planned a weekend getaway for us, a small cabin by a lake. We drove there, walked in the woods, laughed a little, and took pictures. From the outside, it would have looked perfect. But inside, I still felt like a fraud in my own skin. One evening during that trip, Liam said something that nearly shattered my composure. We were looking out at the calm water as the sun set. "You know," he said softly, "I always felt so lucky to have you." He didn't say it like a casual compliment. He said it like a fundamental truth, something he believed with his entire soul. I just stood there, struggling to breathe against the crushing weight of my regret. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the dark ceiling of the cabin, thinking about waking him up and just telling him. I wanted to. I wanted to cry and scream and fall apart in his arms. I wanted him to know, not because I was seeking forgiveness, but because I was so tired of carrying this burden completely alone. But I didn't wake him. I remained silent as always. What kind of life was this? A life where I was loved but felt utterly unworthy of it. A life where I had everything a person could want but still chose an act of self-destruction. A life lived with a smile on the outside while I was drowning in silence on the inside. I used to be a woman who believed in second chances, in communication, in fixing what was broken. But now, I don't even know if I deserve a second chance. How can you fix something you pulverized with your own two hands? How do you begin to rebuild trust when the other person doesn't even know it's gone? I kept asking myself, if I tell Liam, will he leave? Will he hate me? Will he stop looking at me with that gentle love in his eyes? I know I can't expect him to stay. I have no right to ask that of him. But I also don't know if I'm strong enough to watch him walk away. So I remain frozen, paralyzed by silence. Sometimes I wonder why I haven't confessed. The truth is simple and ugly. I am afraid. Not just of losing him, but of what his reaction will confirm about who I have become. I don't want to see that person reflected in his eyes. The person who hurt the only man who ever gave her everything. And the guilt, it's not just about the act itself. It's about who I became in that moment. I let my own loneliness shout louder than my loyalty. I let one moment of weakness demolish years of love. I didn't cheat because I stopped loving Liam. I cheated because I had stopped loving myself. And now I'm trying to pick up the pieces of who I was, but they don't fit together the same way anymore. Every time I look at him now, I feel a sharp, nameless pain. It sits in the space between us, heavy and invisible. He doesn't see it, but I feel it constantly. I feel it during every quiet dinner, every shared laugh, every time our hands brush and I pull away a fraction of a second too fast. And the worst part is that he still trusts me. I see it in the way he looks at me, as if he believes I am the same woman he married. But I'm not. God, I wish I were. But I lost her the moment I stepped into that apartment, the moment I let my weakness speak louder than my vows. Now I live two lives, the one where I pretend and the one where I remember. There are days I wish he would just find out on his own, not because I want to be caught, but because I lack the strength to tell him myself. I imagine him finding a message, overhearing a conversation, somehow putting the pieces together. And then I imagine the look in his eyes at the moment of realization. That image haunts me more than any memory of that night. I don't know how long I can continue to live like this. I don't know if this silence will ever break. I don't know if I'll wake up one day and finally speak the words, or if I will carry this secret to my grave, a heavy stone in my chest that never goes away. Some days I think about just leaving, packing a bag and disappearing from this life. Maybe that would be easier than living this lie. But even that feels like the ultimate act of cowardice, and I've already done enough damage. So I stay, and I wait. But for what? I don't know what healing looks like anymore. I don't know what forgiveness feels like. I don't even know if I'm a person who deserves it. I just live every day with this secret. I can't sleep. I can't speak. I can't move forward.